Fabulous. Well, I'll let the rest of the team sort of let people in, and I would like to welcome everyone who's here to our insight session to celebrate the International Day of Peace with our special guest here today. We really wanted to mark the importance of this day as an opportunity for us all across the globe. So it's lovely to have some of our US colleagues today to sort of make a commitment to peace, kind of above all differences, and draw attention to this cause and get some insight from our special guest speaker, John. So for those of you who haven't sort of met Kaleidoscope as a team before, we are the EMEA D&I sort of group. This is the fabulous team. We have myself, Jewel, Kelly, Danny, Kieran, Natasha, and our new member, David. And together we work to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in EMEA with posts about sort of key events. And we also throw some good variety of events that sort of cover all our interests kind of across our team and sort of wider. This year we've had some brilliant events, including sort of a Women in Tech coffee morning. We have our amazing new series, which is the Kaleidoscope Couch, where we've spoken about issues from appearance in the workplace, including sort of tattoos, and had some fascinating discussions for South Asian Heritage Month, where we had some of our fabulous Cloudwies sort of come wearing sort of some beautiful outfits and talk about their experience. We've also done sort of some get to know me sessions for new hires, and we've got some amazing events that are planned in the next coming months, including an event for Black History Month, which we are very excited to introduce. We'll be sending invites out soon, as well as celebrations for Diwali.
Is it just me who's lost Georgia?
Yeah.
Can everyone still hear me?
Yeah, still hear you.
Yes, we can still hear you. Yeah.
Just you, David.
Perfect. Oh, I'm so sorry. And the last thing I want to point attention to is, and I'm trying to be brief here because we just get up to so much, but we're really excited this year to sort of start increasing sort of attendance. David is evidence of our goal of having some new members, and we're hoping to sort of get some more in-person events in the London office as the year goes on. But we are absolutely delighted today to have a virtual event that we can have people join from both EMEA and the US. And I'd love to hand you over to our wonderful new member, David, to sort of introduce John and sort of really get into it. Over to you, David.
Okay, thanks, Georgia. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks for the welcome, as it is also the International Day of Gratitude. So I'll say thanks to the D&I team for making me feel very welcome. I'll give a brief introduction to me, as I'm sure not many people would know me or met me. I'm a new hire to Collaborative. I'm only here now, I'll be coming up in 2 months shortly, and I'm in the D&I team. So I'm David Murray. I'm a 39-year-old father of 2 boys, and I currently reside in Strabane, Northern Ireland. Why am I here today hosting this? Well, I'm coming from a background in the Irish military, where I recently retired, which I don't kind of, like using the word retired. I feel like a pensioner. But after serving 21 years in the military, and towards the latter end of my career, I started back to college and was doing data analytics and went into a reporting background kind of stuff. So it was for this reason that when I heard that the team was doing a UN event, I volunteered to the team that I would organise it, as I personally would have first-hand knowledge, as I would have served 2.5 years in total with the UN on various peacekeeping missions. And I know that the great work that the UN do and the huge achievements of the UN and what to do, and sometimes these aren't brought to the forefront or public knowledge. So setting about to organise something for it, the first person obviously that came into my head was Lieutenant Colonel John Martin. Myself and John would have served in many of the same places at different times and different capacities over the years. We've been in, I know he's been in Liberia and Chad and various other places. John is a senior leader within the Irish Defence Forces, and which I can only describe as a lifetime. It's 39 years, which again, I'm 39 years old. And just before he took up this new role, he was a director of what would be our military support network, where he would have been the driving force behind many of our policies regarding gender, diversity, inclusion, and mental health policies. He would have been the driving force behind all these. So I think we couldn't have asked for a better representative to talk about these issues and the United Nations, and we're very honoured to have him here today. And I'd like to hand over to John and maybe to give a brief description on himself, his role, and what he can tell us within the UN. So, John, over to you.
Thanks, David. You can still hear me?
We can, yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for giving me that battering that I joined the army the year you were born. It really made me feel great. I'm very privileged to be here. Any opportunity to talk about peacekeeping and any opportunity to talk about the Defence Forces and the role that it plays in peacekeeping is precious to us, and consider this to be a critical audience. And when I floated this, which we always have to do with my own superiors, they were very, very anxious that I would participate. So that's, I suppose we are mutually satisfied in that. Thanks for the introduction. I suppose what I would like to do is to move straight in to just say that I did join the army at 17 years of age. And served overseas on my first deployment at 18 years of age, and now at 56 years of age, entering into my final deployment. It seems like everything has gone very fast, but there has been a lot of changes there in what we have done. What I'd like to do maybe is to talk, rather than go and give you the statistics about this and that, is to talk maybe from the human point of view about peacekeeping, about the effect that it has both on the peacekeepers and on the people whom we serve when we come here. And I think that more than anything else is critically important. It's important to look at, I suppose, why countries do peacekeeping. Why is it worthwhile? Why do you put your people in harm's way? I suppose one of the things is that it's an opportunity to expand the experience of your military personnel. If you're not fighting an actual war, it's good to send them out somewhere else and all that. If you look at it very cynically, to allow them to interact with other countries, and there are other nations that are other organisations that do that, like NATO, European Union. But the UN is for us has always been a very safe one in terms of the moral compass. If something has a UN Security Council resolution, we're pretty sure that we're happy with it. The second thing it does is advances foreign policy, which is something that has to be, for a small country like Ireland, it's been very useful for us to have soldiers in particular areas. And if you look at Ireland at the moment, we have a seat, one of the temporary seats in the Security Council, and part of that has been achieved by our peacekeeping operations. And then the last thing is just simply to do good, and to go to places where you can send other assets, but to send your people is the most precious thing that you can send them, and particularly when you don't always bring them home. It is a blood contribution, if you like, and blood sacrifice is very big in Ireland. We've always identified with that. But to be able to do that is I suppose putting your money where your mouth is. So that's what we do. We have to have government decision to go. We have to have a parliamentary decision, and we have to have a UN Security Council resolution. Otherwise, we don't go. What would I say about it? Well, I first came here to Lebanon, and I have served, as David has said, in Chad, in Liberia, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and a few other countries in Africa, as well as Lebanon. my heart is in Lebanon, and a large portion of my affection and my consciousness is in this country. And that has grown up over the time that I have been here. It has given me some terrible frights. But it has also given me some hugely positive experiences. So for what I would say is, when I came here first, I knew exactly what went out to 300 meters beyond where I was standing. In other words, the range of my rifle. That's what I was there to do. I was there to operate a checkpoint, to engage with targets as I was directed. I had no idea about the different groups that were there or whatever, and we just did the job that we were given. And peacekeeping has become far more important. It has become far more complex than that now, insofar as the decisions of individual soldiers can have huge political and strategic consequences. So that if a peacekeeper loses control at the very lowest level and commits a crime, even never mind an atrocity, well, then that can have far-reaching consequences. So it's really important that people are trained. It's really important that they're informed. We cannot send people out now to do things unless we've fully briefed them on what they have to do. The leadership has to be intelligent. And I would say that my definition of leadership is that it is the constant communication of truth and nothing more and nothing less, so that you're putting truth down and you're receiving truth back up. And if you're doing that, then you're a leader, no matter what people say to you. And that kind of sharing of information is important. You have to be culturally aware. Before, we used to come out, we used to say, well, these guys are Muslims, these guys are Christians. How do we know the Muslims or the girls will be wearing scarves? And that's all we need. And it's far more complex than that now, that we have to understand what it is to be a Shia Muslim in South Lebanon now, what it means to be a Maronite Christian now, what is the experience, what is the history, so that we are nuanced, so that we are able to interact with people. And those things are very important. We have to show restraint all the time. We have to show restraint. Soldiers do that anyway. People do that anyway. But it's to show that restraint in an organized way that is cohesive. In other words, that we're doing it as a group. It's not just individual emotional restraint, which is great. It's that restraint that is based on, so that we don't have one group showing restraint and another group not, and then that leads from one thing to another. And if the organization shows the same level of restraint, then it has the positive effect. And then we have to show flexibility, and also we have to, I suppose, we have to interact with each other. So there are something like, I think, 27 different countries in this camp that I'm in at the moment. So even before I even leave the camp, I have to show restraint, and people have to show restraint to me as well. We do things differently in Ireland than we do in say in Tanzania or in Ecuador or wherever it is, or in Sri Lanka. So it's important that we work together. So that if you just to give you a flavor, then if that amount of training, the amount of education that goes into preparing somebody to go peacekeeping in a particular country, apart from knowing how to use their weapons, how to blow things up, how to drive their vehicles, all of that stuff, it's a very complex operation, and it's hugely beneficial, as David will testify, to the people that actually go and do it. I suppose if I'm to say, how do we do it? Well, we learn from the people who've done it before. So we talk to each other, and we learn those lessons, so that people who have been here before speak to the people who are coming, and that works really, really well. We have started to record the lessons of people. We've started to bring people back who have retired, all of those people to speak to us again and to say, well, this is it. And we've started to bring people from the countries where we are going. So in Lebanon now, and a lot of Lebanese words have entered Irish military vocabulary, as you can understand. By the way, David will also testify in an international environment where there are so many different countries. Irish people and English people always end up together, and I think what happens there, that's for those of you who are English, what happens is we realise that in fact, while we think we are so completely different from each other, while we're on our two little islands, once we go out and we see the rest of the world, we realize, oh my God, we're exactly the same. And that kind of broadening of horizons is extremely useful, and extremely, it makes us better people when we come home as well in our own countries. if I'm good to just keep going, Dave, just for one moment, I would just like to say
keep
that
going.
the effect that it has on people within the countries that we operate, and I have seen this in Africa, where they meet peacekeepers from so many different countries who are clearly there with their interests at heart and nothing else. There's no other game, there's no other agenda. Is extremely heartening and is extremely it resonates with local people, and that for me is one of the most important things about peacekeeping, is that the effect that you have. What we do is we send we don't just conduct military operations. We conduct programs for women. We conduct education projects where we send our engineers in to rebuild schools. We provide support for local government. We reinforce the security of vulnerable people by ensuring that street lighting is in place, for instance, that kind of thing. So we work on those projects all the time, hand in hand with the fact that we wear uniforms and that we're armed. But that's the level that we work at in those things. And we operate from the very highest level. For instance, in my current job here in South Lebanon, I work in the Department of Political and Civil Affairs, and we operate at the highest level between the different parties to try and ensure liaison, coordination, cooperation. If people are talking to each other, they're not shooting at each other, that kind of thing, right down to, as I said, there's somebody out there somewhere who's in the same shoes that I was in nearly 40 years ago, who's looking down the sights of his rifle and saying, well, that's all I need to know. So that's the way we do it, and it's great to arrive at that place to see that. I'd leave it open. That I've loads more that I could say, but I would just say that I'd like to hear what you'd like to know. But in my experience, peacekeeping, and I have a catalogue of it, has been the most positive thing that I have done. I have felt genuinely that I have made a contribution to the welfare of vulnerable people, that I have protected. Not me as a, but this. I've been part of this organisation that has done that. It's been hugely positive for me, and it's something that I will certainly take as a huge plus when I retire shortly. That I was able to contribute, and I was privileged to contribute to that. So I would just leave it there. If anybody would like to ask some questions.
Yeah, I forgot to give out a disclaimer at the start. If anybody would like to pose a question to John, feel free to either message me in the chat if you're not comfortable giving it out, but we might do an open forum at the end. And I have a few questions already coming through. But John, in regards to what today is, the UN Day of Peace, the International Day of Peace, why does the UN feel that they need to recognise a day? What is the purpose of the day? And I see today the theme for this year is End Racism. From your own experience, how are we factoring that in racism? What can we do to convey that message, and what is the reason behind the End Racism?
I suppose I would personalize it, and I would say that one of the most important things that we can do for people is to allow them the ability to express themselves, whether they express themselves verbally or in poetry or in art or in sport or whatever it is, because people who can't express themselves become angry and frustrated, and that's just what we have seen. And that and when it comes to racism, I honestly feel that if you sat down for lunch with somebody, it's difficult to hate them. If you have worked with somebody, if you've been, when you come to the United Nations and work with the UN, if I just take the block where I'm living, in the room next to me, there's a guy from Fiji who talks about rugby all the time. Then there's a guy from Greece. Then there's a guy from Finland. Then there's a guy from Malaysia. A guy from Cyprus. It's so diverse that what you get from it is an understanding that really, you know, your flag, while you wear your flag on your shoulder, it becomes just a flag, and you're less concerned about your nationality and more concerned about individuals and more concerned about people. And I think that if the UN gives us nothing, it gives us that. From a personal point of view, I think that throughout the world, some of the things that we have taken for granted, for instance, democracy, LGBT rights, the safety of women and children in conflict, particularly, all of the you know, issues of diversity, issues of equality, and then issues of peace, which underlines that. They're no longer completely safe. They're challenged in many of the places in the world, and I think the UN, again, if it does nothing else, it promotes that in a way that, you know, it says no, we must recognize peace as a good, peace as something that produces stability, which produces safety, which allows people to achieve their potential, so that people can live their lives, not in the future, but live their lives now in a way, you know, gaining education, able to earn their living, all of those things, provide for their children. So I would say it's easy to say peace is just a word, but it isn't. And there's a lot of people out there who are not that interested in peace. And so any organization that puts it and says, this is the day for peace, I think it's important.
Yeah. Okay. Well, a few questions coming through. One here, just how do you see the difference in Lebanon from when you first arrived to now, to your first trip to Lebanon? How would you find?
I see many of the same problems, unfortunately, that I saw when I was here first. I would concentrate on things that haven't changed. And again, I spoke to some of you about this. I think the Lebanese people are the most extraordinarily kind-hearted, generous, civilized people that I have ever come across. You know, every Lebanese that you will speak to will have at least 2 languages, and probably 3, and that's just as normal. They're resilient. You know, I think unfortunately they have that those people have been produced as a result of what they have gone through. Hard times make good people. That's just the way it is, unfortunately. But I think they deserve better. I passionately believe they deserve better, and certainly once I finish with my uniform, I'll be back here to do what I can to make sure that they do.
I think that can tie into another question I got there, John. Within reason of what you can talk about, what was your most challenging project while you in South Lebanon? What have you found the most challenging while being there?
I would say during the earlier time as a young officer, where some of my soldiers have been casualties and where people have been killed, that has been the most challenging and the most difficult to deal with that. You know, questioning your own decisions, questioning your own professionalism. You know, because in those situations, it's always nothing. You know, we see if you watch the movies, everybody knows what's happening in a violent situation. The one thing I know about violent situations is that almost nobody knows what's happening. Yeah, so losing some of my soldiers has been the worst that thing that has ever happened, I have to say.
Yeah. Understand it. I'm going to open the floor to anybody here if anybody wants to jump in, maybe from the team, because I know we're coming short in time, and I would like to definitely end it with one of our vice presidents. Michelle would like to come on also and say well goodbye on it. So I will invite Michelle to talk if you would like to.
Sure. Hi, John. I just wanted to say thank you so much, really, on behalf of Collaborative Solutions. I think I speak on behalf of all of us when I say, you know, listening to you is both inspiring and humbling. And the fact that you've taken time out of your day to spend, you know, to talk to us is even more humbling. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time. It's just a stark reminder of how lucky we are, I think, here in this country and all the privileges that we have every day. as people. So yeah, thank you so much from me. What you said about leadership really resonated with me. I think, you know, speaking the truth is absolutely fundamental, and yeah, so thank you for sharing that. I thought that's the piece that really resonated with me, along with many other things that you've said today, so thank you.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
So, John, I would like to resonate the same thoughts of everybody, and thank you on behalf of the team. I know from the comments coming in here, people saying they could listen to you talk for hours. But
Be careful what you wish for.
We have definitely a short window, and it was amazing to get you on. And thank you so much for taking the call. Much appreciated. And I wish you a very safe remainder of your tour, and hopefully you get home safe. And thank you very much for everything. So, okay.
Thanks. Thank you for the opportunity.
I'll talk to you soon enough. Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Linda. Okay.
Bye bye.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
everybody.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.